For about 100 years, the cleverest people in the food business had exactly one job: not to feed you, to make you want. To engineer the crunch, the fizz, the precise collision of sweet and salt that hijacks your brain and whispers, "Go on. Just one more." And it worked. They built a multi-trillion-pound empire on one beautifully reliable truth: appetite only grows. It never fades. It only ever points up. And then, almost overnight, millions of people started taking a tiny weekly injection and simply stopped being hungry. This is the story of what happens when the one thing an entire industry was built on quietly flicks itself off, and why the most powerful food companies on Earth are, right now, more than a little terrified. Welcome to World Frame Media, where we take one ordinary thing you walk past every day and pull the thread until the hidden machinery behind it unravels. Start in the supermarket. That bag of crisps in your hand is not an accident. It's the endpoint of decades of research, taste testing, and, as we covered in an earlier video, an entire secret industry whose only purpose is designing flavor. Food scientists even have a name for the Holy Grail. They call it the bliss point, the exact ratio of sugar, salt, and fat that makes a product maximally irresistible, and crucially, very hard to feel full on. Sit with that for a second. Some foods are deliberately engineered so your "okay, I'm satisfied now" signal never quite arrives. That's not a glitch. That's the business model. Because for a century, the maths of big food was gloriously simple. More people, eating more often, eating more. Growth was practically guaranteed by biology itself. Hunger was the engine, and the engine never stalled. Until somebody found the off switch. You know the names: Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro. Medically, they belong to a class called GLP-1 drugs. And here's the genuinely delightful part. The entire class traces back to a fat, sluggish desert lizard called the Gila monster. This thing eats maybe a handful of times a year. To pull that off, its venom contains a hormone-like compound that regulates blood sugar and basically switches hunger off for months at a stretch. Scientists studied it, isolated the mechanism, and built the first of these drugs from it. So, to summarize modern medicine, your willpower has been quietly outsourced to a reptile that eats about as often as you actually use your gym membership. And here's a fun wrinkle. These were never meant to be weight loss drugs at all. They were designed to manage type 2 diabetes. The appetite-crushing effect was essentially a side effect so dramatic, it became the main event. The mechanism itself is elegant. Your gut naturally makes a hormone, GLP-1, that tells your brain, "Right, that's enough, we're full." These drugs mimic that hormone, but turn the volume right up and make it last. Food leaves your stomach more slowly, and that "just one more" voice, the one the entire snack industry was built around, it goes quiet. People on these drugs eat, on average, somewhere between a fifth and a third fewer calories. Not through grit, not through willpower. The bliss point versus a weekly injection, and the injection wins. Now, if this were a few thousand people, it'd be a medical curiosity. It is not a few thousand people. Roughly 1 in 8 American adults has now taken one of these drugs. It spread so far it spawned its own slang, its own red carpet whispers, even its own "look." But the number that makes food executives put down their fork is the forecast. By 2030, households using GLP-1s are expected to make up around 35% of all food and drink sold, more than a third of the entire grocery basket, reshaped by a single class of medication. And it gets sharper still. The people cutting back the most tend to be higher-income households, which, awkwardly, are the most profitable customers fast food has. So this isn't a slow leak at the bottom of the market. It's the best customers, quietly eating less. One large study of U.S. households found GLP-1 users trimming their grocery spending within months of starting, with the steepest drops in exactly the high-margin treats supermarkets lean on. So what's actually happening on the shelves? We're starting to see it in the data, and it's striking. Grocery spending in these households is sliding. Fast food visits are down. And the single hardest hit category? Savory snacks. The crisps, the salty nibbles, the impulse grab by the till. The exact stuff the bliss point was perfected for is the exact stuff people drop first. There's a poetry to that, isn't there? An industry built on, "betcha can't eat just one," meeting a drug whose whole personality is, "actually, I can." The big names are feeling it. In the UK, the bakery chain Greggs has warned of flatlining profits in the grab-and-go market. And in a detail that tells you everything, Hershey has quietly brought back a classic recipe for some Reese's products. Because when appetites shrink, every single purchase has to earn its place, and brands are scrambling to feel worth it again. The era of mindlessly chucking 3 extra things into the trolley is, for millions of people, simply ending. And here's where we pull the thread right to the center. Because the food industry is absolutely not sitting there losing gracefully. Oh no, it's doing what it has always done best, repositioning to sell you the next thing. If people eat less, but each bite has to matter more, then the new gold rush is high protein, high fiber, functional food, designed to slot into a shrunken appetite. Suddenly, every label on the shelf is screaming about grams of protein. Companies are shrinking portions and charging more for them, rebranding restraint as a premium. And the very same conglomerates that spent 50 years engineering you to overeat are now investing in the products you'll reach for instead. Read that again, slowly. They sold you the craving. Now they'd very much like to sell you the cure for the craving, and the protein snack you eat instead of the cure. Vertical integration, baby. That is the hidden machinery. An industry so ruthlessly good at adapting that it finds a way to profit whether your appetite is switched on or off. But, and this is the twist nobody's quite sure about yet, it might not stick. Around a third of people stop taking these drugs. And when they do, the hunger comes roaring back. In fact, when users quit, their chocolate purchases jump straight back up by over 11%. The body, it turns out, has a long memory and a serious sweet tooth, which leaves one genuinely open question hanging over the whole industry. Is this a permanent rewrite of how humanity eats, or the most expensive snack break in history? Either way, something profound has already happened. For the first time, hunger, the engine humming under the entire food economy, has a dial, and whoever controls that dial controls dinner. If you enjoyed pulling this thread with us, give the video a like and hit subscribe. It honestly makes a difference. Next week we pick another ordinary thing and pull the thread. I'm willing to bet you've already walked past it today.